We are going to dive in to some specifics. And to introduce our next speaker, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Kathy Young.
Hello again. And it's my privilege to introduce Stella Yee. She is the Director of Admissions at the University of Washington School of Medicine, where she has guided multiple students through the process since, I think, 2010, maybe before that. She has a BA in Women's Study and American Ethnic Studies and a Master's in Education, Leadership, and Policy in Higher Education from the University of Washington. I'm delighted to welcome Stella Yee.
Hi all, thanks so much for having me. I am just going to go ahead and swap this. All right. So it is always a joy for me to come and speak with everyone about the admissions process. And before I do that, I always like to talk about the mission and the values that the WWAMI program, the School of Medicine, has, because I think it really helps in regards to understanding why we're looking for what we're looking for. Also, I think it gives folks a little bit of insight about what kind of curriculum that you can expect as well. So in regards to, one second. So in regards to what are the things that we're committed to? We are committed to the states of Washington, Wyoming, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho, or WWAMI. We are Alaska's in-state medical school. So my hope is that if you're in this session that I will have an opportunity to interact with you, as you are about to embark on the application process or when you're in the application process. We're committed to training physicians of all specialties to practice in the region. But because so many of our communities and patient populations live in very rural and remote areas, as well as areas that are very urban dense, but experience historical and societal barriers to accessing care, we recognize the special importance of training primary care doctors. But with that said, when we are looking at our applicants and we're reading about what they want to do, what we're going to be most interested in knowing is how do you know what you want to do? Because the reality is that a lot of our applicants end up changing their minds in regards to what specialties they want as they're talking to more physicians, as they're delving into their clerkships, as they are really being able to experience the breadth of different aspects of medicine or practice. They tend to be able to focus and explore all the different professions that are out there. So while the specialty that people might be interested in might change by the time they start medical school to when they actually enter the residency program, how they make their decisions doesn't change. We're also committed to training folks who are interested in biomedical research. We have a federally funded medical scientist training program for folks who are interested in getting a PhD as well as an MD. And we're also committed to providing educational opportunities for those who are coming from disadvantaged backgrounds. So when we are looking at our applicants, then what we're really looking for is we're looking for folks who will help us meet our mission. We also want to find doctors who know what it means to be a physician, what the realities are, what are some of the joys, as well as what are some of the challenges that they face. We want students who understand what are some of the current issues facing physicians, what are some of the current issues that are facing the patients that they want to care for, and what might be impacting their ability to receive care. We're looking for students who have the academic wherewithal to pass classes, to pass standardized tests, and we're looking for students who love to problem solve and be able to really think critically of complex situations and scenarios. And of course, we're also looking for folks who have strong communication and interpersonal skills. Because the reality is that someone could be a subject matter expert, but if they're not able to communicate it in a way or say it in a way where people are going to understand because they're using a lot of research jargon, or the people are not going to be very receptive to it because they're saying it in a way where it comes across as maybe arrogant or abrasive. They're not going to make a very effective position. And so what we're looking for is we're really looking for applicants to have all of these pieces. And so what it also means is that someone who has a 4.0 GPA is not going to be able to make up for the fact that they have no understanding what it means to be a doctor, or someone who has lots of, like shadowing experiences or scribing experiences, but no experience being part of a community and serving others. That is not going to make a very effective doctor or a competitive applicant. So we're really looking for folks who really have all of these different components that we're looking for. So this is an expectation that we have for all of our applicants. And for our applicants who are outside of our WWAMI region, we will consider them, but only if we feel that they help us meet our mission. And so in that situation, we're only looking for applicants who have extensive record service with underserved communities. Typically, these are people who've done Peace Corps or Teach for America, or have had other similar experiences where it's been, many years history of working with vulnerable communities and populations, or they come from a significant distance traveled. So before I go any further, I just want to go ahead and address the elephant in the room, which is that we have had a very difficult last year, where we've all experienced a collective loss, which includes, and is not limited to, loss of loved ones, loss of security, loss of money, and loss of opportunities. And because many clinics and hospitals are appropriately prioritizing patient care delivery and the safety of patients, we recognize it's very hard for applicants to get shadowing and clinical experiences at this time. And this is something that all medical schools in this country recognize and are also thinking about when we're approaching the upcoming admissions cycles. And so the thing to keep in mind is that schools are really looking at applications, and we're really contextualizing applicants' experiences based on the opportunities that are available. So this means that we are going to be very understanding that applicants are not going to have less clinical hours. They're going to have less in-person experiences. Schools are going to be much more open to students having virtual shadowing or other experiences where it may not be clinically oriented, but still gives them an opportunity to serve other people or serve the community. With that said, we want to make sure that the people who are matriculating into the program, being admitted into the program, still understands what it means to be a physician and what it means to be a doctor. And so in that case, it's still important for applicants to have some in-person experiences. So what that means is that if you are in a situation where you have no in-person clinical experiences or no in-person, or no patient interactions at all, this might be a time for you to focus on other ways you can learn about medicine or healthcare, and then just kind of sit out the application cycle and wait until there are more opportunities available before for you to be able to do before you actually apply to our program. Now, for folks who are not familiar with applying to medical school, it is a long process. So you're taking the years before you submit the application, learning as much as you can about being a doctor, learning about being part of a community and serving others, working with patients. And then the application itself is a year long. So here you can see that we have the MCAT that you should take before September of the year you plan to start medical school. We also have the deadline to submit your AMCAS application, the deadline to submit your secondary application, which is when each individual school is going to ask for information that's more specific to their program. We interview applicants between October and March, and for Alaska candidates, we have a week set aside specifically just to interview Alaska students by Alaska interviewers. And I have the dates for last application cycle, which will likely be different for the upcoming cycle. And then decisions are actually made on an ongoing basis. So we start making offers to folks that we interview throughout the season. And then for the folks who are applying for the Alaska cohort, they are going to have a decision by the end of the interview week. And decisions will go out the following week formally to everyone. Now, the thing I should probably emphasize that I probably didn't bring up in the beginning is that when you apply as an Alaska resident, you are applying as one pool and as part for a cohort. And so that means all Alaska applicants will be considered comparatively with other Alaska applicants for 20 seats in the class that is specifically for Alaska residents. That means that if there are not going to be other applicants from other states considered for those spots, 20 spots, those are reserved just for Alaska students. Now, one thing I want to also mention is that because we have one set week of interviews just for Alaska residents, and we have one day where we make all the decisions for Alaska cohort, the concept of rolling admissions does not really apply to Alaska residents for our program, because what it means is that no matter when you apply, if you apply in June versus if you apply in the very last day, you're going to be, if you're a competitive candidate, you're going to be interviewed that week. But with that said, I want to encourage people to apply early anyway for our program, because that gives you plenty of time to work on your application. It gives you plenty of time to resolve issues that come up that might be completely out of your control. So for example, if you are asking transcripts to be sent to to AMCAS, if things get lost, then you have time to follow up to make sure that the transcripts are resent. Or if you're asking for letters of recommendations and your writer suddenly goes on, surprise sabbatical, you have time to find another person to write a letter for you before the deadline passes. And that can only work if you give yourself plenty of buffer time to make sure you get things in before early and before the deadline. All right, so a question I had was, how many seats are there in the different states? So it will depend on the state. So for Alaska, there are 20 seats just for Alaska residents. Wyoming also has 20 seats just for Wyoming students. Montana has 30 seats. Idaho has 40 seats. And then for MSTP students, typically we have 10 MSTP students matriculate, and then the rest are Washington residents. And that's going to be 60 seats for those who are in the Spokane cohort, and the rest are in Seattle. Okay, so let's talk about the MCAT. Now, as I mentioned earlier, because of the pandemic and concerns about safety and access, we have decided to make the MCAT optional again for first-time test takers for the upcoming application cycle. So this is for E2022 only. Now, keep in mind, this may not be, this may not be a decision. This is a decision that's best kind of decided depending on the individual circumstances. So if you are immunocompromised, or if you're living with a roommate or family members who are immunocompromised, we don't want you to necessarily expose yourself to COVID and potentially get sick or get someone, get a loved one sick. And so for that reason, we're making it optional. Now, with that said, this may work better for some applicants versus others. And so I would encourage you to go visit our website, which I've included the link below, for some additional guidance to see if this might work best for you. Now, in regards to if you decide to take the MCAT, you should definitely take it before September of the application year. And in any other years, our policy regarding the MCAT is that scores are good for 3 years. So that means if you take the MCAT this year, the scores will be valid for fall 2022, 2023, and 2024. The University of Washington is part of the American Medical College Application Service, or AMCAS. This is a centralized application system where rather than submitting, 15 different applications to 15 different schools, you are submitting one application to AMCAS, and then they are forwarding it to the schools who are participating in the service. Basically, all of the allopathic MD programs are part of AMCAS. Texas has their own system, but if you're applying to schools outside of Texas, you're going to be using this. And the deadline to submit an AMCAS application is going to vary with each program. For us, you do have to submit it by October 15th. And the other thing to keep in mind is I'm going to strongly encourage you to not wait until the last day of the deadline to send it, because I have had applicants every year who shoot themselves in the foot because they don't realize that AMCAS is on Eastern Standard Time, and then they wait until 11:30 at night to submit it and realize that they missed the deadline because of time zone issues. We also have the AMCAS processing fee, and it costs $170 to apply to one medical school. And then for each additional medical school designation, it's $39, which can get pretty expensive. And so nobody wants money or the application process to be a reason why someone does not apply to medical school. And so there is the WWAMI fee assistance program that is available for students who meets the criteria. And if you are eligible, then it means that you will have a reduction of MCAT registration fees from $320 to $130. You also have a free study prep guide that will let you take the MCAT, help you study for the MCAT. There's also a subscription for the medical school admission requirement, or MSAR, which is a very helpful resource that I encourage people to look into as they're about to embark on applying to medical school, because it includes all of the information about each school's curriculum, prerequisite information. It includes statistics, as well as such as average MCATs, averages GPAs, demographic information. And the other thing is that when you do qualify for a fee assistance program, you will get all your AMCAS fees waived up to 20 medical schools, and many schools also waive the secondary application fee. All right, so there are 2 questions submitted to the chat. One question was, what is the average MCAT score for 2021 Alaska applicants? You're in luck, I have a slide that will address that coming up. And then the next question is, would you have to apply to every UW school in the WWAMI, or do you need to be a resident in the state of the school? Okay, so we will process you based on your current legal state of residence in your AMCAS application. So if you say that you're an Alaska resident, then we are going to process your application for the Alaska cohort, and you will only be considered for the Alaska cohort. You do also have to submit, you have to go through an eligibility or a verification process, and I believe that information is on the University of Alaska Anchorage WWAMI website in regards to, thank you, Dr. Yen, in regards to how you would, be verified for the WWAMI program as an Alaska resident. So as I mentioned, the AMCAS application is going to send one application to a number of different medical schools that you're interested in applying to. What they're doing is they're collecting all the information that all schools are going to want to know. Everybody wants to know what has been your clinical exposure. And this is where you can include virtual shadowing. And again, each medical school is going to be a little bit different in regards to their policy. So you may want to just check with each program to find out what their stance or perspective is about including virtual shadowing in your application. University of Washington is completely fine with it. This is where you can talk about your community service experiences, and this can include non-clinical volunteering. Any experience you've had engaging with patients. It doesn't mean you have to be a CNA or an EMT, but that you've had taken the time to really talk to people that you could be caring for as a physician. What leadership roles or positions you've assumed. If you've done research, this is an opportunity to talk about that in a way that you really talk about the meaningful aspect of the research. I think it's important to include employment in your application because it helps the committee understand where some of your time might be spent. And also a lot of students develop really important skills that are transferable to medicine. And also any hobbies, interests, or things that are a big part of who you are and what brings you joy, that can also be included in your application because that shows also how well-rounded you are. And then again, just kind of going off about, just talking a little bit more about, what to do during this time when it's very difficult to find a lot of, volunteer activities or clinical activities. This is still an opportunity for you to learn more about medicine. For folks who, this is, you can read news articles or listen to podcasts about current healthcare issues, learn more about health inequities and public policies that are being discussed. Talk to doctors about their careers, read memoirs by doctors, watch videos related to medicine or patient care. And then also another way to kind of think about this, past year and this current year is that what are some of the opportunities that are available to you that may not have been available before? And one of the nice things is that there are a lot of these types of conferences like the one that you're at right now, where before travel might have been a barrier, but now because it's virtual, there's a lot more opportunities for folks to attend these panels and to be able to network with the folks who are speaking at the panels. So, take advantage of that and see what are some of the panels and conferences that are available and then out there that you could, register and attend and learn. Is scribing good for clinical exposure? Scribing is an excellent experience, and that's something a lot of our students do. And then can you submit the AMCAS application before the October deadline if you have one remaining prerequisite course to complete in the fall semester? Absolutely. Our policy is that prerequisites have to be completed before you start medical school. So I would definitely recommend that you apply before you have that prerequisite course completed. If, however, you have many prerequisites that are still pending, then I might wait to apply. But if it's just one, I think it's fine. The reason is because once you submit your application to AMCAS, you can't make changes to it. So if you want the committee to see specific courses you took or grades that you received in those courses, or if you want the committee to read about some of the activities you are doing, then you want to wait until that is over, and then you can include it in your application and then send it in. So a common question I get from applicants is, what can I do to stand out from everyone else? And the reality is that most, pre-med students, and honestly, most pre-health students all have very similar activities and are doing very similar things. But what makes someone stand out is actually what they talk about and say about their activity. And so when I mentioned the, including all the different things that you've done in your AMCAS application, the thing you want to do is really reflect and not just describe. So what that means is you're talking about, what did you learn? What are some of the perspectives that you got? What was the impact that that experience had on you, or what impacted you have on the folks that you worked with? And so the things that you might want to ask yourself as you're writing these experience activity write-ups is, have you gone outside of your comfort zone? What are the insights that you've gained? When you write about your your experiences, are you showing that you're someone who really learns from what they've done? How do you interact with other people? Do you come across as mature? And also, what did you learn? We want to be able to understand how you see the world and how you interact with other people through your application. And another way to really show that is through your personal comments and statements. Now, in the AMCAS application, it's going to ask you why you want to go to medical school, but I am going to really push you to really take it another step further, which is why do you want to be a doctor? And so this is where you talk about your reasons for looking into medicine. What has been some of your prior experiences in healthcare? And what have you done to really explore the profession, and what might be some of your eventual goals? Now, that is pretty much the gist of the AMCAS application, which again is the application that goes to all the different medical schools. And then once schools get your AMCAS application, they may ask you to complete a secondary application. So in this case, our secondary application is going to ask you to submit some additional essays and statements. This is when we will want to see your letters of recommendation, and we're going to require folks to submit either 3 individual letters at minimum, and then, or if your school offers a committee letter, a letter from your pre-med committee, and then 3 additional letters as optional. So minimum 3 up to 6, unless you have a committee letter, then it's committee letter plus an additional 3 as an option. We will ask students to take CASPER, which is a situational judgment test, and students should take that before the end of October. And then this is also when you will need to be verified as being eligible for the Alaska WWAMI program. And so those are the different parts and pieces of the application. And now I'm going to talk about the process. So once we get your AMCAS application, what we're going to do is we're going to actually conduct a preliminary screening and an academic screen. Applicants with a low GPA and a low MCAT score could be rejected. And the reason why I do not have numbers associated with that sentence, which makes, I know, causes a little bit of anxiety for some pre-med students, is because that changes every year. So this is an automatic this is an automated screen to help us kind of manage the over 9,000 applications that we get from applicants. And the 9,000 is from all over the country, so not just Alaska folks. And for the upcoming cycle, the GPA cutoff is going to be 3.0, and then folks with the MCAT score, the cutoff is going to be 495. We do require students to have permanent residency or citizenship, and then we do cap limit number of times people can apply to 3, because we want to encourage folks to really take time in between applications to get new experiences and perspectives before reapplying. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of backtrack a little bit to talk more about the academic screen. Because this is an automated screen, we recognize it's not perfect. It doesn't take into consideration graduate work. It doesn't take into consideration post-bac work. And we also recognize that for many applicants, sometimes it takes some time to kind of adjust to being in a college environment and studying and finding their study style. So if you are ever in a situation where you suspect that you might have been rejected just based on the academic screen, but you know that you have an upward trend when it comes to your grades, and you know that you have a solid MCAT score, you can always ask for a manual review of your application. And what will happen is you'll just send an email to our office. We will pull your file up, and then if we agree that you have an upward trajectory and you have a solid MCAT score, we will put you back into the pool for consideration. Now, here you can see the slide for Alaska applicants. For the most recent application cycle, we had 84 people apply with 20 students, 20 offers made. Because we just wrapped up our most recent application cycle, we haven't taken anybody off the alternate list yet. So the metrics for offered and entering are the same. Applicants who are above the academic cutoff will automatically get a secondary application. And folks who are not from WWAMI will get a secondary if they, again, meet the mission of our program. So once you pass the screen, then we'll ask you to complete a secondary application. And when we get your secondary application, that is when we will review your essays, we will review the secondary application, and we will decide if you will be invited to interview. We have a group of veteran committee members, or known as screeners, who on their own will review your application independent of each other and decide if you will be invited to interview. Any applications that come out with a negative outcome will end up going to a screener who is from Alaska for a final review, and they can decide to overturn that decision and invite that person to interview. Please keep in mind that because we are spending time to kind of review all that hard work you put into the application, it can take up to 6 weeks for us to get back to people regarding a decision. So things they're considering when they're screening your application is, do you have the basics? So we're looking for, again, upward trends and trajectories when it comes to grades. We're looking to see if you have the experiences and activities that show that you're making an informed decision about going into medicine. Are your experiences consistent with what you tell us you want to do? Sometimes we do get applications from people where they say they want to be a primary care or rural doc, and then when we look at their application, they've only been in big cities and only shadowed radiologists, and that makes us really concerned about how they decided that they wanted to be a rural primary care doc. We're looking to see if someone has a clear and coherent motivation for medicine, and also if someone has solid letters of rec as well. So at the point that someone is invited to interview, the idea is that they probably will be fine in medical school, but the interview is an opportunity for us to kind of reaffirm what we read in the application, and also get a chance to see each and every one of the folks' sparkling personalities and how they might interact with others. The next session will be given by Dr. Doty. Will talk more about the interview, so I'm actually going to I'll just leave it at that. And then once applicants have interviewed, the interviewers will make a recommendation, and the notes and the recommendation and the application is going to go to what we call our XCOM meetings. This is where we have a group of veteran committee members review the applications, will go through presentations, and then they'll make decisions on who will be admitted, who will not be admitted, and who will be on the alternate list. So that is a lot of information about our process in a nutshell. There's a lot more that we have on our website that I would encourage you to take a look. I've also included my contact information and the information of our office, so that if you ever have questions after the conference, you're welcome to reach out, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Anybody in the admissions office will be happy to answer your questions. And I also included our Facebook page because this is actually our best mechanism that we have to have get information out to our pre-med students.